There's something quite sick and sinister going on in the United States, which for most of my life has actually been praised as the world's great defender of democracy. But instead, you've now got two states there, Colorado and Maine, who knows who will follow them, who have banned voters from being able to choose Donald Trump as their candidate in this year's presidential election. They have banned from the primaries the most popular candidate in the country. And therefore, they're banned him from the election as well. Now, the Supreme Court in Colorado and separately the State Secretary in Maine, Shenna Bellows, claimed that Trump is disqualified under the Constitution because they think he supposedly led an insurrection, a riot at the Capitol after the last election to stop Joe Biden from replacing him. And Bellows claims that she's actually defending democracy here by refusing to let voters decide whether they actually want Trump. And she doesn't see her own hypocrisy.
These events happened at the behest of the outgoing president and with the knowledge and support of the outgoing president. And the U.S. Constitution does not tolerate an assault on the peaceful transfer of power.
Yep, democracy means you can vote for a candidate. You can't vote for a candidate she hates but you want, and that is democracy left-wing style. Joining me as a regular in this election year is Sean Spicer, Donald Trump's first White House spokesman. Sean Spicer, glad to have you on the show tonight and for the rest of the year. The US Supreme Court is going to be hearing an appeal against the Colorado judgment in 30 days from now. That appeal's backed by Republican attorney generals from 27 states. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, first, Happy New Year, Andrew. Always a pleasure to be with you. Look, I hope that it's a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling that they have no right to do this. There's several facets to just really quickly make sure your audience understands. Number one, a state can't tell the federal government what to do with respect to the eligibility to be president. Our Constitution lays it out very clearly. You have to be a natural born citizen. You have to be 35 years old. President Trump meets those qualifications. You cannot just willy-nilly add qualifications in there. What they're doing is looking at the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of our Constitution that says that no one shall be a senator nor representative nor elector who has engaged in an insurrection. Well, number one, President Trump, that's not the office that he's running for. And the framers of our Constitution were very, very clear and specific what they were trying to convey. And if they didn't list the office of president nor the office of vice president in that. Whether you agree with that or disagree, that's what's written in the Constitution. Number three, which I think is probably the most important, is that he hasn't been not only convicted of an insurrection, but he hasn't even been charged with being involved in an insurrection, nor, frankly, Andrew, has anyone in the United States with respect to January 6th been even charged with that. So how do you remove somebody for engaging in a behavior on which not only have they, nor anyone else in the entire country been charged with? So why I say 9-0 is that I really do hope that the other justices, as a matter of law, join with the 6 conservative justices and say, if you don't want to vote for Trump, don't vote for Trump. But a democracy at its core is allowing people the right to vote.
Well, I think you make a point about the law, but Sean Spicer, I reckon there's another issue here, which of course shouldn't really impinge on the thinking of judges, but still, if Trump is banned, what does that do to America?
Exactly. And that's the point, though. In a democracy, and we're a republic, but at the end of the day, we're modeled after a democracy. And the key to democracy is giving people the right to vote for someone or against somebody. And the idea of a state elected official, in this case, the Secretary of State of Maine, is not a lawyer. In the case of Colorado, it's 7 Democratic justices that have been ruled, that the appeals court ruled one way and the lower court ruled another, who are saying that he engaged in a behavior. He's never had what we call in America due process. But if you won't even let the American people vote, this is something that we chide third world countries around the world by saying that you need to have free and fair elections, allow competition to exist. And we here in America are suddenly going to ban the leading candidate of the Republican Party who has been a former president from running again. I just don't know how you turn around and look anyone else in the eye in the rest of the country, in the rest of the world, and preach to them if you can't do it yourself.
Oh, forget about what the rest of the world thinks, Sean. I mean, I'm worried about what might happen on the streets of America. I mean, you're telling half the Americans.
I agree. I think they're, look.
The guy they say in the polls, what's that going to do? Riots? What's next?
Look, I think if this were to happen, Andrew, I can't imagine how this would tear the country apart. The idea that one side is being told, we won't let you choose your candidate. And the irony, of course, is a bunch of Democrats telling people who can be on the primary ballot. This isn't even the general election ballot. This is the primary ballot, something that our courts have ruled the parties in our country have full jurisdiction over. And here is a bunch of Democrats trying to tell Republicans who they can and can't vote for in their own primary.
It's so sick. It speaks to something really malignant in the culture of the left that this sort of thing can pass muster. It just staggers me, and the hypocrisy of it too.
So can I just to remind voters, I was part of the campaign in 2015, and there was this there was this Russia hoax, this idea that we didn't win the election. That's what they said first. In 2020, when President Trump ran for re-election, the mainstream media and big tech in America banned the Hunter Biden laptop from being discussed or shared, something that we now know through polling would have changed the votes of countless thousands of people in America had they had that information that was banned from them from even sharing or seeing by big tech and the media. And here we are now in 2024, now the third at bat, if you will, is to outright ban him from the ballot. Once again, we're seeing the efforts that the left is using to ban the people that they don't like from even having an opportunity to compete.
Look, these people claim to be fighting autocracy. They are the new autocrats. I mean, it's just, it just leaves me speechless, basically.
Joe Biden has now, for the last several weeks, talked about his campaign being rooted in preserving democracy. So on the one hand, they're trying to ban President Trump from appearing on ballots, as you say, in 27 states, right? Maine, Colorado being the big ones that the court is going to decide. But even with his own party, Andrew, in Florida, they canceled the primary. They canceled it. They told people in the Democratic Party, who now have people that are running against him. Marianne Williamson is one. Representative Dean Phillips from Minnesota is another. The people of Florida can't even cast a ballot. They canceled the primary. These people are lecturing everyone else about democracy being under attack. And whether it's in their own party or now looking forward to the general election, they are trying to prevent people from having a voice, being able to cast a vote for somebody other than their own candidate, Joe Biden. So I can't believe that the left wants to lecture us about democracy being in peril and under attack. And yet, in multiple circumstances, not allowing people to actually have the right to vote.
It's just extraordinary. Just quickly, Sean Spicer, meanwhile, we do have the primaries starting. These are elections, of course, to decide who will be the Republican and, on the other side, the Democrat candidates in the November election. They actually start next Monday in Iowa and then New Hampshire the week after. Now, on the Republican side, you've got former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. She's just spent more than $3 million US in advertising in a week, ahead of the $2.3 million spent by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, while Donald Trump's spending just $1.2 million. He's a runaway leader, so I guess he's keeping his cash from later. What does that spending tell you? Because it wasn't that long ago that Nikki Haley didn't have 2 cents to rub together for her campaign. Now, bang, she's got $3 million.
Well, I think donors who the media here has been hyping her up as the alternative to Trump. She definitely has momentum. There's no question about it. As far as the spending goes, the campaigns are spending a bunch of money, as you just noted, but there's also these outside groups, super PACs that are affiliated with the campaigns that can spend at a much higher rate. Trust me when I say that there is not an ad that can be bought in Iowa or New Hampshire that isn't being bought. In Iowa, it's not just the TV advertising. Iowa is what we call a caucus state. People have to show up and cast their vote at a particular time and place in multiple locations throughout Iowa. It's an organizing exercise. And President Trump has really put a lot of time and effort into what we call the ground game, making sure that they identify their voters, that they turn them out, get them to show up to the particular caucus site that they have. This is going to be a really big test. If President Trump wins Iowa by more than 10 or 15 points, I think that's the end of the DeSantis campaign. We move into Iowa, as you said, the next week. And there, if President Trump actually is able to outdo Nikki Haley by the same margin, 10, 15 points, I believe that the race will effectively be over after New Hampshire.
That's be very interesting. Well, I can't wait to talk to you next week about the result in Iowa. That'll be fascinating because I agree, it's going to tell a lot. Sean Spicer, thank you so much indeed for your time.
You bet. Happy New Year.